All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to talk about the absolute heart of React, the component. Seriously, if you're going to master React, this is the one concept you have to get down, because it's the foundation for literally everything. So let's get right to it. What exactly is a React component? Let's break it down so it's super clear. Okay, so at its core, a component is basically a self-contained piece of your user interface. Think of it as a little bundle that has its own logic and its own appearance. And it can be tiny, like a single button, or it could be huge, like an entire page. To make this really concrete, just think about any standard website you've ever seen. We can pretty much always break it down, right? You've got a header, a side nav, the main content area, and a footer. Well, in React, each one of those, that's a component. And they all live inside one single root component, which we usually just call the app component. And this is where the magic happens. When you break your UI into these little pieces, you unlock the real superpower of components: reusability. They basically become these awesome, reusable building blocks for your entire app. This is a perfect way to think about it. Imagine we build one component, just one, for a Pokemon card. On the left, we feed it some data and bam, it shows a grass-type Pokemon. But then, check out the right side. We take that exact same card component, give it different data, and now it shows a fire type. It's one blueprint that we can use over and over and over again. It's kind of like building a house. You don't start with one giant single piece of house, right? No way. You build individual walls, you install doors, you put in windows, and then you assemble all those pieces together to create the final structure. That's exactly what we're doing when we build UIs in React. Okay, I know what you might be thinking. This sounds kinda abstract, maybe a little complicated to actually code, but trust me, the reality is, it's surprisingly simple. Ready for the big secret? Here it is. A React component is just a JavaScript function. That's it. Its only job is to return something that looks like HTML to describe what should pop up on the screen. Now, this mix of JavaScript and HTML, that's a special thing called JSX, and it's what makes writing components feel so natural. Seriously, if you can write a function, you can write a React component. All right, enough talk, right? Let's move from theory to practice. We're going to build our very first component right now, from scratch. It's really just a simple three-step process. Step 1, we just define a normal JavaScript function. Step 2, inside that function, we return a little bit of that HTML-like stuff, JSX. And then for step 3, the final piece, to actually make it show up on the page, we use it inside another component. We just write its name inside angle brackets, just like a regular old HTML tag. And this right here brings up some really important terminology. The component that holds everything, in this case our app component, we call that the parent. And the component that's inside it, that's the child. You're going to hear about this parent-child relationship all the time in the React world. Okay, now this is a super important rule you have to remember. Did you notice how our welcome function started with a capital W? That's called Pascal case, and for React components, it is absolutely mandatory. It's not just a suggestion. This is how React knows the difference between your custom components and just a regular HTML tag like a div or a paragraph. And here's exactly why that matters so much. On the left, with that capital letter W, React knows what to do, and it renders our component perfectly. But look at the right. If we use a lowercase w, React gets totally confused. It thinks we're trying to use some random HTML tag called welcome that, well, it doesn't exist. And you'll see an error pop up right in your browser console. Okay, so we've created a component, we get the all-important naming rule. Now let's take it a step further and see how we actually use this nesting idea to build out a whole user interface. And to get a really good feel for this, let's just make another one. We'll create a super simple button component, and we'll pop it right inside our app component, sitting right next to our welcome component. So you see what we're doing? We are composing our UI. We're building a clear structure. We have the app component as the parent, and now it has two children, welcome and button. This is the fundamental way of working in React. You just break everything down into smaller and smaller components. It's components all the way down. All right, let's wrap this up by recapping the 3 most important things to take away from all this. So, number 1, components are just little self-contained pieces of your user interface. Number 2, at the end of the day, they're just JavaScript functions that return some JSX. And number 3, we build our apps by nesting these components inside each other, creating a kind of tree structure.
Now, having all our components in just one file is perfectly fine while we're learning, but you're probably already thinking this is going to get really messy really fast. And you'd be right. So that leaves us with a really important question for next time. How do we actually organize all these components for a real-world application? We'll dive into that in the next one.